He who seeks respect is humiliated. He who doesn't need it is feared. The world doesn't listen to words, it listens to state. You can talk for hours about dignity, but if there's anxiety inside, you won't be heard. You can demand respect, but if you depend on the reactions of others, you won't be felt. Machiavelli knew influence isn't created by words, it's born from the invisible field a person creates with their presence. People sense strength not from phrases, but from how their breathing changes when they're near you. True respect is not begged for. It cannot be bought, earned, or forced. It arises where a person stops needing it, because respect is a side effect of inner authority. Machiavelli wrote, "A ruler is respected not for his words, but for his ability to maintain order. Likewise, a person whose life is governed by internal discipline commands respect, even when silent." You can be outwardly quiet, but if there is clarity inside, people feel it. You may not make loud statements, but if your energy is collected, you don't need to prove anything. The world bows to structure. Where there is chaos, guidance is needed. Where there is order, respect arises. People respect the one who is able to hold form, who doesn't crumble under pressure, doesn't lose face in conflict, doesn't change position for approval. Machiavelli knew strength is not pressure but stability. Influence begins when a person becomes the axis. The world revolves and he stands still. You don't get respect through words. You get it through behavior that needs no explanation. When you don't react to provocation, when you don't justify your decisions, when you don't wait for someone to notice your worth, then people start to feel distance, and distance creates attraction. Machiavelli wrote, "Power loves silence." A ruler who talks too much causes doubt. The strong person acts silently, and this commands more respect than any slogans. Because a word is a sound and silence is a form. People see the form, feel the boundaries, and react to them instinctively. Influence without words is not magic. It's the result of inner clarity. Your walk, gaze, intonation, pause, everything speaks for you. When you don't rush, people start to wait for what you'll say. When you don't explain, they start to speculate. When you don't argue, they start to doubt themselves. Machiavelli knew uncertainty is the main tool of power. You lose influence when you explain too much, when you justify why you acted a certain way, when you try to convince, because conviction is a form of request, and respect disappears where there is a request. The strong person doesn't prove, he demonstrates. His decisions speak for him. The most powerful influence is calmness. Machiavelli wrote, "The person who can remain calm in chaos becomes the center of the world." People are drawn to calm individuals, not because they are right, but because they feel security near them. Calmness is the currency used to pay for power. The less internal panic you have, the more external respect you receive. To gain respect without words, you must stop wanting to be understood. Machiavelli understood. The one who waits for understanding has already surrendered power. People are not obligated to understand you. They are obligated to feel your boundaries. To understand means to evaluate. To feel means to acknowledge. And those are very different things. Your strength is not in words, but in how you endure silence. People test you with questions, arguments, manipulations, to check if you have an axis. If you react, they stop respecting you. If you hold steady, they start to trust. Machiavelli wrote, "The enemy is not afraid of the scream, he is afraid of silence." Influence without words begins with an internal ritual, with how you enter a room, how you hold a pause, how you don't rush to fill the space. People sense when someone nearby is not frantic. This is mesmerizing. Machiavelli knew, power is not what you do, but what happens around you when you do nothing. But silence must not be empty. Empty silence is anxious. Strong silence is structural. It is filled with certainty. To create such silence, you must know who you are. Machiavelli said, "He who does not know himself cannot rule others." Because power is a reflection of internal order, you will not gain respect until you stop being a reaction. People must see that your decisions don't depend on their behavior, that your mood doesn't depend on their words, that your composure doesn't crumble under their criticism. Then they begin to perceive you as a force, not as an equal participant in the game. Influence without words is the art of being an observer without losing presence. Machiavelli knew, power always belongs to the one who observes, because the one who sees does not get involved. Observation is a cold form of love for reality. You don't argue with what is, you use it. The strong person doesn't intervene in every situation. He doesn't try to fix everyone. He understands that action without necessity weakens influence. Machiavelli wrote, "To rule is to know when not to intervene." The fewer movements you make, the more force each step carries. When you stop rushing, you begin to govern time. People respect those who don't follow the crowd's rhythm. The one who can wait appears wise, even if he is just patient. Machiavelli knew, patience is a form of power. It forces others to reveal themselves first. To gain respect without words, you must learn to be calm in the presence of tension. People create drama to test your stability. If you lose control, they see weakness. If you maintain silence, they feel structure. Machiavelli understood. Power is the ability not to succumb to the rhythm of someone else's chaos. Hidden strength does not require harshness. It requires clarity. The strong person doesn't prove he's right. He simply remains himself. People feel where the center is, and if you are the center, the world revolves around you. The greatest influence belongs to the one who does not need it. When you don't seek attention, attention seeks you. When you don't strive for recognition, recognition becomes inevitable. Machiavelli wrote, "The less a person desires power, the more they are given, because they have no fear, and people sense it." To influence without words, you must first stop trying to be influential. Influence is a side effect of self-possession. When there is silence inside, order appears outside. When you stop demanding respect, people begin to show it, because respect is not a reward, but a response. Machiavelli said, "Fear and respect are born from the same source, the perception of strength." People feel not what you say, but what you radiate. If you stand calmly, they feel a boundary. If you are confident, they submit. If you doubt, they start to rule you. You gain respect not because you prove your correctness, but because you don't need validation. The strong person doesn't wait for the world to say, yes. He is his own judge. His calmness is a signal. He belongs only to himself. Influence without words is not a game of coldness. It is the ability to see and not react. The ability to understand without intervening. The ability to be present without the need to speak. Machiavelli knew, power manifests not in action but in presence. The fewer movements you make, the more meaning each one holds. The strong person doesn't take 10 steps to prove one point. He takes one, and that is enough, because every step is weighed. Every gaze has weight. Machiavelli understood. Power is concentration. You cannot be respected if you scatter your energy. People sense when you are empty. Respect is born from fullness, from the feeling that there is a depth in you that one does not want to intrude upon. Therefore, the strong person is always slightly misunderstood. Machiavelli wrote, "The ruler must be mysterious." People fear what they don't understand and respect it. To be respected without words, you must be a little inaccessible, not cold, but distanced. When you are available to everyone, they stop valuing you. Machiavelli knew, rarity is a tool of power. What is easily obtained does not command respect. The power of presence is not a pose. It is the result of internal discipline. Every day you either lose influence or strengthen it. Every justification weakens you. Every held pause strengthens you. Machiavelli said, "Power lives in the repetition of actions, not in statements." The strong person doesn't demand respect because he knows respect is a reflection of order. When you are ordered, the world responds with a bow. When you are chaotic, the world responds with disregard. Therefore, influence is not an external struggle, but internal work. You gain respect when you stop explaining your silence, when you allow others to feel awkward before your calmness, when you don't rush to fill the pause. Machiavelli knew the pause is a form of pressure. People reveal the truth when they cannot endure the silence. True strength does not require an audience. It doesn't need recognition. It simply acts. People feel this energy and react with respect, because in its presence, masks disappear. Machiavelli wrote, "Power does not require proof, it is felt. You gain respect without words when you can hold your gaze. When you don't drop your eyes before aggression, don't smile out of fear, don't justify others' behavior. People read this instantly." Machiavelli knew behavior is more important than beliefs. People believe not words but stability. Influence without words is when your silence is louder than others' monologues, when your calmness forces others to rearrange themselves, when your presence reminds them of their own chaos, and they begin to align themselves. This is power, not imposed but natural. Machiavelli would say, "To rule, you don't need to command. You need to be the one who doesn't lose himself. Then others will start to align. You cannot gain respect while seeking confirmation that you deserve it. This is an eternal trap. The harder you try, the less you are seen. People sense when energy comes from need. Machiavelli knew need makes one dependent, and dependence kills influence. Respect begins the moment you demand nothing more. The person who demands nothing becomes a mirror. The world begins to look into him and see itself. People are drawn to those who do not judge, because next to them, the falsehood becomes clear. Machiavelli wrote, "Power is the ability to evoke internal movement in others without doing anything." To influence without words, you must understand one thing. Energy is more important than information. People remember not what you said, but how they felt next to you. Machiavelli understood. Respect is a reaction to order. When a person is calm, without internal turmoil, their presence inspires trust. And trust is the foundation of influence. You can be silent and you will be heard. You can stand aside and you will be noticed. You can do nothing and still manage the situation, because power is not in action but in the field. Machiavelli knew the strong person creates an atmosphere, not arguments. To gain respect without words, you must stop being a mirror of others' emotions. People constantly test boundaries with a smile, sarcasm, pity, accusation. They throw emotions at you to see how stable you are. If you reflect, you are weak. If you are calm, you are the master of the field. Machiavelli wrote, "The ruler has no right to be a mirror. He must be a wall onto which others project." Strength without words requires internal discipline. You must learn to endure pauses, not just external ones, internal ones. When the desire to justify arises, be silent. When the fear of losing contact appears, stay put. When you want to prove you're right, just observe. Influence grows not from actions, but from the ability not to yield to impulse. Machiavelli said, "People fear those they cannot read." It's the same with respect. The less you explain, the more you are respected. Because mystery attracts and predictability devalues. You don't have to be closed off, but you must be unspoken. When you leave room for interpretation, the person constructs the meaning themselves. And if there is order within you, their interpretations will always be in your favor. People are inclined to see greatness where there is a lack of information. Machiavelli knew, silence allows others to attribute strength to you. To influence without words, you must accept solitude. Silence is not just a strategy, it is a way of life. Most people cannot endure silence because the truth is heard in it. Silence reveals who you are without roles. Machiavelli understood, power is always solitary, because where conversations end, responsibility begins. You cannot influence if you depend on reaction. Influence is a cold fire. It burns without the oxygen of approval. People respect the one who does not lose composure when criticized, because they see there is nothing to hold on to. Machiavelli said, "The strong cannot be offended because he gives no point of leverage." Your task is to be a stone in the river. Let everything flow around, but you stand still. Then, the water itself will start to change its course. This is influence without words, to be so internally unmoved that the world adjusts to your rhythm. Machiavelli knew, true power requires no effort. It is based on internal order. You cannot force people to respect you, but you can create a state within yourself before which they will bow down naturally. Every gesture of yours either gives energy or takes it away. When you say too much, you lose strength. When you explain, you devalue the action. When you smile out of fear, you lose dignity. But when you are silent out of confidence, you create a field. Machiavelli wrote, "Power is the art of leaving things unspoken." You gain respect without words when you can manage attention. People pay attention to what they cannot control. Therefore, unpredictability is a source of influence. When you don't explain your steps, you arouse interest. When you don't react predictably, you create tension. Tension is the fuel of respect. But importantly, influence without words is not a game of coldness. It is not about a wall, but about a center. You are not detached. You are standing in balance. You are not closed off. You are collected. Machiavelli knew, a ruler who loses touch with reality loses power. Likewise, a person who turns calmness into armor stops influencing. True silence is alive. It breathes. It does not suppress, but holds. People sense when they are facing not marble, but structure, strong yet warm. Such silence commands respect because there is no threat in it, only certainty. To become this way, you must learn not to play the role of the strong person. Strength requires no role. It manifests in naturalness. Machiavelli wrote, "The best ruler is the one whose actions do not seem like a performance." People sense falsehood faster than sound. Therefore, influence is born in simplicity. You can speak simply, walk quietly, dress modestly, and still radiate power. Because power is not in the form, but in the fullness. Machiavelli knew strength is always felt before it is realized. People respect those who do not try to impress. You gain respect without words when you stop competing. Competition is an acknowledgement of someone else's importance. The strong person does not compare himself to anyone because his path is autonomous. People sense this and begin to follow. Machiavelli wrote, "The best way to defeat an enemy is to make him irrelevant. When you don't fight for attention, it comes to you. When you don't demand recognition, they start listening to you. When you don't strive to prove you're a leader, people choose you as a guide." Machiavelli knew power is not taken, it arises as the shadow of confidence. Influence without words is not passivity, it is direction without unnecessary movements. You act minimally, but every movement is precise. People sense this economy and begin to consider your steps valuable. Machiavelli wrote, "Every gesture of the ruler must have weight." To be respected without words, you must remember, respect is a reaction to your non-involvement. People get tired of those who constantly explain, who are too available, who impose their opinion. They are drawn to those who simply are. Presence is influence. Machiavelli knew, when you can stand aside and yet not disappear, you rule. Because power is the ability to be outside the game while remaining at the center of the field. You gain respect not because you are stronger, but because you are calmer. In a world where everyone is shouting, silence sounds like power. Machiavelli said, "Among the shouting, the one who can listen wins." The strong person is not the one who always wins, but the one who does not crumble when he loses. Because respect is not for the victory, but for the stability. Machiavelli understood, defeats do not humiliate if the person remains standing. The world respects those who do not drown in the storm. You can be silent and be heard. You can prove nothing and still influence. Because influence is not communication, but vibration. Machiavelli knew, strength is when others feel the need to agree, even if you haven't asked. The strong person doesn't need applause. He doesn't wait for a reaction. His calmness creates a field where everything falls into place. People respect him because near him they feel order. Machiavelli wrote, "Power is the ability to evoke a sense of structure in others." You can be modest, but if there is dignity inside, you are respected. You can be without titles, but if there is a law inside, you are listened to. You can be alone, but if there is peace inside, people feel the presence of strength. To gain respect without words, you must be true to yourself. Not to ideas, not to expectations, not to roles, to yourself. Machiavelli knew fidelity to oneself is the highest form of power, because a person who does not betray himself becomes unyielding. Influence without words is silence with meaning. People feel it with their hearts. They may not always be able to explain why they feel calm near you, but that is precisely the sign of respect. Machiavelli would say, to be respected, don't speak, be. Don't explain, breathe. Don't demand, radiate. People will forget your words, but they will never forget how they felt near you. If these words resonate, subscribe to the channel. Let this truth reach those who are tired of shouting to be heard. If you recognize yourself, write in the comments, "My silence speaks louder." If you feel ready to influence without words, write, "I create order with my presence." Let's see how many here know how to rule without noise. This is only the beginning.